Okay, here's a process. I don't know that anybody's actually uh, asked for this process, but it's something I found to do, and folks that I've done it for and I've seen it have dug it. So I thought it'd be something I'd share. So I've been able to figure out how to turn your autograph or your handwritten signature or your handwritten initials into a 3D print. And Uh, it's not incredibly hard to do, but there is a slight process to make it happen. So I thought I would go through and share that. Um, there's some objects here that I've some 3D prints like this one here was one I just threw in. It, it's the and she there's a J and an L for that individual. You see the J and the L there. Pretty cool, huh? 3D printed name. It'll stand up. But she wrote that. Now it's a 3D printed. Her initials are a 3D printed object. This one is actually mine, and you see I made my C and my B, and this I actually turned this into. Uh, uh, I mean, I use the C and the B. I use the actual print for all types of things to market now as mine. I glue it on all types of things, but uh, something interesting that I did with that was I replaced the emblems on my car. So now my car, which I mean, to be fair, that thing is older than dirt. I love my no payment car, but now it has that logo on it instead of the logo that was originally on it. And then other things that I've done with them, taken like the autographs and turned them into. This is a guy I used to play music with, who plays bass and guitar. But yeah, that's his signature there that I turned into a 3D printed object. And then all of us had these things, and they'd be light up, and they'd be something that you would put on your amp or whatever you do with it. But yeah, there's a lot of different reasons. It kind of looks like a neon. It's a way to get yourself a neon. Uh, I kind of pilfered some parts off of this and uh, this piece here, so now it's not all together anymore. But yeah, that was one that I made at some point in time in the past for a fella, and we took it on stage with this and things like that. And somehow it's wound up in my gear. I All of these are the 3D printed signatures made from drawing a name, and I've kind of got it broke down to where it's fairly a simple process here. Behind me, you can see where you got to get the autograph in the best way you can get it presented as best as you can get it. Uh, you prep you prep that signature for a digital conversion. So you're going to prep it and you're going to convert it, and then you're going to clean up the 3D model that comes from this conversion, and then you're ready to print it. So it's not too hard to do, but just a few steps here. So first, I'm going to take a look back over here, and I'm actually going to go through this process here. So you want to start off with a signature. And while you can use a fairly small signature, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle with that signature if you have it small to get anything of substance out of it. So what I generally do is I'll have folks use the biggest Sharpie that I can find, which is this. It says king size Sharpie, and then like I literally wrote my name uh, probably 12 or 15 times before I was like, that's the one. But be willing to let somebody give it a shot and write it as many times as they feel the need to make it look like they want to, because I mean you don't want to go through that process of creating this thing and then have them be like, I don't like the way my signature looks. And I'm like, well, why didn't you try it a few dozen more times and try it a few different ways and things like that? Because I didn't just come up with that CB there. I monkeyed with things for a while and decided that if I was to have a logo, then it would be look like this. And it took me a bit. So same thing with this idea. If you're going to try to do an autograph, which I really don't have an autograph, so uh, I'd say some guys like Daryl, he had a look at. I mean, he has an autograph. I mean, that looks awesome. He knows how to do an autograph. But yeah, so there's that, and then you get these. So mine looks a little bit more straightforward. I would hate to call that an autograph. That just looks like I signed my name. But I used the Sharpie and I got it on a white piece of paper. I did it on a white piece of paper so that when I took an image, it didn't shine back or something like this whiteboard stuff does here. This whiteboard has a tendency to shine back at you. And I kept the Sharpie nice and tight to the page to make a nice, clear, dark signature so that it wasn't busted up or got real thin or loose in areas. Things like that don't print. It's kind of like trying to 3D print hair. It doesn't. Their 3D printer doesn't want to print hair. Like sometimes it prints hair on accident, but it's not. If you try to make it print hair, it never works out nicely. So it's the same thing here. If you get things too wispy, it will come apart on you. And repairing somebody's signature, it just takes time. So if you can get a good signature from the start, a dark, uh, nice dark, as big as you can get them to sign it. I mean, I kind of exaggerated this one. Usually, whenever Daryl's is actual size there, I asked him to do it big. This is actual size, so it kind of gives you an idea. I mean, it's kind of somebody that does a nice signature doesn't do it quite like as sloppy and as big as I did. Of course, you couldn't put my full name on this page anyway. I know. So yeah, you can see what he did there. He fit that DT across that page for me. That Daryl. Yeah. So yeah, but there's that. You see what I'm saying there? Nice thick line, nice and dark, and take as many times as it takes to get something they're happy with, and that you're happy with, that you know will work. So something that will be nice and clean, and it won't just be in pieces. Um, if you can get them to do it in one piece, it prints and goes together much easier. Like Daryl did a separate D and then his last name, so where sometimes you'll see people just run all that stuff and scribble it together. So those are much easier to deal with because it all comes out as one piece. But people sign how they sign. All right. So now we've got a good signature. So here's my signature. I took a picture of it. What whatever your photo editing software of choice is, Photoshop, uh, GIMP, Canva. I mean, there's quite a few of them out there that are good. I just happen to have Photoshop, and it makes quick work of this. So I'm going to make this happen with this. I'm going to give this a transparent background so that whenever I run the magic eraser tool on Photoshop, and I put the tolerance up fairly high because I'm trying to get rid of any artifact that are up in there. Um, should be able to get, yeah, there we go. So it cleans it up nice and tidy there. It got rid of all the stuff except for the stuff that was trapped. So that's what you want to see. Oops, let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. So you see that there's not a bunch of little dots. You want to look around for that. Any dots or anything that are left over, any artifact around it, because that won't print very nicely and that won't convert very nicely. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to get rid of those loopy holes. And I think that's pretty good. I don't see it. I don't see a whole bunch of artifact. I don't see, you see where there's a little bit of, this type of thing kind of gets exaggerated for some reason in the 3D printer, where the pin wasn't incredibly smooth for some reason, and I'm not sure what causes the pin not to do that. But you know, the spin, you can kind of see it. It's a little bit not perfectly smooth right there. Not a good smooth. A little bit up here too. Actually, it's not real smooth. So for some reason, the 3D printer tends. I feel like it exaggerates that. You can feel it with this piece here. You can see it in this piece here. So it happens. And now, my gosh, see if I can get the right tool here. Okay, so let me get this piece of paper out of the way here because it's just all over me. I'm going to duplicate this layer. And then sometimes it helps to go through and try to smooth these things out, to use one of these filters. You see how that one kind of gives it an outline look, very outline. Trying to see if there's any of these that difference may be a good one. All right, so there we go, merge. Okay, so I've merged those layers into something that's a little bit thicker and darker than itself just by using one of the filters. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to beef up the signature just a little bit. All right, so to do that, let me see. I've been using GIMP for a bit, so let's see if I can remember how to do this off the top of my head. I'm going to lock the bottom layer, and then the next layer, I'm going to zoom in so I can see real close here. All right, and I'm just going to drag it off to one side just a little bit. All right. I'm going to try not to get to where there's too many splits at the tops and the bottoms, but you see how it's already thicker. All right, so I'm going to, oops, I'm going to go to the bottom layer again, and I want to duplicate that layer again. All right, so it's going to put another layer in there, and I'm going to lock this layer here. That way, I'm going to slide that one off to All right, so you don't want to leave any gaps. And I want to leave that loop in the D. So we're going to try to get as wide as we can without destroying anything. All right. So you can see by offsetting these a little bit, I took that thin pencil Sharpie line and created something that is substantially thicker now. And it did not destroy the signature. All I did was thicken that thing up. So um, I might be able to go a little bit more, but I think that that's going to work. So I'm going to leave it. I export it as a PNG. Come on, thing. And this is my signature this time. Chad. Oops. Chad name. I'm just gonna put name. Transparent. Back. All right. So now I'm gonna have this PNG that has of my signature that has nothing else behind it. And it should be nice and clean. And I have thickened the thing up. So I'm going to go ahead and close Photoshop. Save changes to Photoshop. Yes. I'm going to go ahead and save this just in case I have to come back in and mess with it again. If I make mistakes or something like that along the way, I want to be able to go back. So now I've taken and I've gotten a decent autograph with my Sharpie, and it's a little bit, it's as big as I could get it and make it look decent, as decent as what my name looks anyway. And then I prepped it by cleaning up the background, cleaning up any artifact. You know, that was a very clean image there. There wasn't a bunch of stuff there. And the filters did a good job of cleaning that out in Photoshop. And then I thickened it up by laying a couple layers of itself on top of itself and shifting them, offsetting them. Gave it a little bit thicker profile. So it's prepped. Now I'm ready to convert it. So there's probably a handful of these out there to do this, and I don't to do it free. You know, I don't know if there's any that's better than any others, but I've been uh, I've been messing with this one called, it just says image to STL, convert PNG STL for free, uh, and you know it converts all of these things here. I mean, it's crazy what it'll do here. So, but it looks very, I don't know, it's a little suspect, but it seems like it works, and I haven't had any problems from using it, so I'm going to keep using it. And it doesn't necessarily give me the cleanest product back. All right, so it's imported the name, and the options, I went and I enabled smoothing to try to keep it from getting, uh, it becomes incredibly textured sometimes on the z-axis for some reason. So no good reason on that. 2.9 inches. Okay, that's the height. The depth is 0.3. I mean, 3/4. That's slightly less than a half inch, right? Because it's in inches. 0.4 is less, just slightly less than 1/2 inches. So I think if you wanted the high detail or this other low detail, I think that costs you money. If I'm not mistaken. I'm gonna put it on high anyway and find out what it does. We'll just go see first. Convert to STL. Let's see what it does. Your image is being processed. So there is what appears to be my image. If I can get this thing to there we go. That's oops, that's the opposite. I mean, not that that's not cool, but you see what it did. it okay. So go back. Oh, that didn't work so well. All right, put that back in there. Do it again. Okay, so standard high. Maybe it's invert the output. Let's try that. All right, let's see what that does. There we go. That's what I wanted. Okay, there's the other button. So now you see this three-dimensional version of my name here. Okay. And this is a very clean looking model. This should print nicely here. All right. Now I'm going to download it. So we're going to put that in there. I'm just going to save the file name as it is. I'm not going to be picky about it. All right. So next, I'm going to do a couple things, and this uh, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on this, if you like. But this is a habit from working with an older model photo poly machine where with some not so great slicer software. But Autodesk's Mesh Mixer is a sweet tool for prepping your models. It has a, I mean, you can go in there and draw on your model if you want to, or you can mix things together. It does all types of things. It's a 3D drawing tool that happens to be real friendly with 3D printers. So it's got stuff in there. It's got stuff built into it just to work with 3D printers. Interesting. Oh, you know what? I'm going to tell you what happened here. So if you see here, it for some reason, I remember doing this before too. Extract all. All right. So it gives me this README too that here that goes with that. It's probably something to do with licensing that I'm going to ignore. Okay. So there is my name in the 3D printer software. Looks very tidy, does it not? Looks very tidy. So you can see it's got a little bit of texture across the top, but there's things that I can do to help with that. And there's a few things we can do to help beef it up. But I put it in this one first because it's got this uh, function here to make things solid. And uh, when you 3D print things, you find that it'll send instructions for like a paint job, but not necessarily the structure underneath the paint job if you don't set things up right. So this would making things solid is part of making a digital 3G object turn into something that a printer can actually physically put together. So I turn up the accuracy on this pretty high, so it takes a little bit for it to calculate. Because if you don't, then it really just kind of mushes things. You see how it kind of smoothed things out a little bit there whenever I went through that. Um, and I'm just going to go ahead and accept that. I think I like it. I'm going to open this up all the way. So um, the camera views in this are a little lacking. I will say that's the one thing about this software. So that's pretty good. It looks pretty good. And the next thing that this does, and um, if you have, I have Kira for this 3D printer, and it actually does some of these things for me now. So, but this is also a habit where you check for holes and gaps. And this it's got an inspector here that goes through and does all that. It found nothing. I guess this is a pretty good looking. That's a pretty good looking model here. So it looks like it'll print pretty nicely. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Happy with that. We're going to put that into here, and I'm going to call this Chad name solidified. There we go. So now this thing, it's ready to print right now as it is. All right. So uh, there's that. Let's take a look real quick at the size it's going to come out as. So I'm going to the edit. There we go. Transform. That's the one I want. There we go. Edit, transform. Trying to remember all these tools and what they're named on these things is rough. So the z-axis in millimeters is 1.8. So as I said, it's a little bit half. I may there's something that we can do here. So I'm going to put it up to an inch, 2.5. Accept. All right. So now I just made that taller. It's going to come out, which is way taller than I actually want. Just a moment here. I'm looking for. There it is. Transform again. So I'm looking at these numbers. So that's the only thing I changed was its depth. But now, what I want to do. All right. I'm going to plane cut it. We're going to remesh the fill. And now I got to come into the model and look at what direction and how much I'm going to cut off. I want I want to actually keep. All right, so it'll allow me to keep both. I only want to keep the one though. That's all right. I feel like there's a function that allows me to switch this, but I'm not. There we go. There it is. Okay, so now there we go. So the piece I'm going to keep now. This is what I'm going to keep. So now I'm cutting that roughness that was on the top. That's what I'm doing here by plane cutting it. And you see that it has this little arrow here to swip that around. I forgot about that little piece there. I use Tinkercad and Blender and these all this software. It has similar functions, but trying to remember exactly how they go about doing it sometimes is it can become a lot. So I'm going to keep. Let me see. There's all of it. So there's that. Except now I go and I plane cut it again from the bottom. All right. This time I'm going to plane cut it from the bottom, and it'll smooth the bottom. It'll flatten the bottom off for me. All right. So accept that. All right. So now we've got this. My signature is got a very flat top and a very flat bottom from plane cutting those, and that'll smooth that out in the print there for us. Um, I use this software all the time, but trying to keep this separated from Tink and Blender is like I'm looking for the proper words. So I might go through in the editor one more time and just tell it to make solid. Now that I've done that again, I'm going to run that solid. Oh, the accurate. I want it accurate, and I want it very accurate. So I run the numbers up, and I tell it accurate up there. Um, as far as the mesh thickness, I leave all that stuff as it is. I don't want to adding a bunch of artifact. I'm trying to avoid that. See, even by going through and remeshing, that's what happens. You get a little bit of a slightly different object when you remesh it again. So I'm gonna tell it to cancel. Look at this. When you tell it to cancel, it looks very smooth now. Um, I might analysis in the inspector, and I see nothing wrong with that. All right, it seems like it went through there and did what it's supposed to do. I don't know. I like the smoothness of it before it's been remeshed, because if I run and do this to to tell it to make solid again, it kind of smooth things out on there. So I think I'll keep that. Again, I would want it to be accurate, very accurate. I don't want it to be lumpy, and see how chunky and lumpy it looks whenever the accuracy is down. I can update it up here. It'll uh, it'll smooth it out a little bit, but it still remeshes. So, and that remesh is doesn't look. It rounds the corners. It does do that. I kind of like that. It rounds the edges a little bit. Okay, so as quickly as I can, here is a model that uh, I didn't spend enough time cleaning up when it was a PNG in Photoshop. And this is what happens whenever you get it back and it's messy from the conversion software. So you can see that from the top, you can see that it is a J and an L. It is indeed a J and an L. But whenever you look at this thing, you can see how textured this thing is and how rough it is. So, this is going to print. This won't print at all. This is a mess. This thing here. So there's ways, and I'm not going to clean this up all the way here because I've already actually done it, and I'm not going to mess. I'm not going to mess with that again. But uh, you can come over here and select areas. This is where their camera just sucks. See how it's highlighted over there? Oh, no, it's not anymore. All right, so I'm going to, oops, that's terrible. Let's do it again. I'm going to select these pillars that are out here, that garbage, and then I'm going to edit and just tell it to discard it. So you can see that I can come out here and this artifact that is out here with a select tool, it's got you just kind of circle what you want and edit and discard. So you see how that can work there. There are also other tools. You can see looking down in this thing. It's like it looks like it's hollow down in there. There's up in this area, it's got a little bit more fill, but down here it's hollow. Over here it looks hollow. So there's ways to fill that in. And let me see if we bring in the edit tool. There we go. It's the brushes tool, and then and I'm going to pick the pinch tool, and that's awful big. See how big the size of the tool. There we go. Let's bring it down to about the right size, and then I'm going to get down, and then I can just kind of pinch this in the middle here and tell it to come up, bring it up, bring it in. You could come in with, if you really wanted to fill some in, you can literally draw it in there. See how it puts little blobs in there. You might want to zoom in closer so you can be a little more accurate with that, but get you a better pin. But you see how I'm literally filling in that gap. All right, where it's rough there. So even whenever it's and then okay, so you make this thing and it's all blobby and looks rough. All right. So it doesn't make a difference that it's not smooth. The idea is that now that it's solid, it's got fill in it, right? Because now you can come in and go to the edit and the plane cut and just trim this top off, all this garbage here that's off the top, the bumpy infill that you got in there. So you just plain cut and smooth all that out. So you go through and you select and delete the garbage the artifacts that you don't want in areas, and then you go through and backfill areas where there's big, huge cavities where the software is not going to autofill things that are that much cavity in there. That has to be filled there, and then uh, you plain cut it to smooth it back out. And it's not preferred. It would have been much easier to get a clean PNG and uh, let the all, let the software, the conversion software, have something nice and easy to work with. But obviously, that's not what I did with that file. I buzzed through and was lazy with the prep, and I had to pay for it in the cleanup, and that's what happens. But you can see that I still got the file out here. So here's that file it printed. It's that J and the L that you see there. So I cleaned up all that garbage that was around it. I plane cut it so it's nice and smooth. It doesn't look like that anymore. It's all flat across the top. So I backfilled and plane cut it and pinched it and warped it. It's got all these tools in Mesh Mixer to allow you to do that. So that's a messy file that was turned into something useful. There's more than one way to go about doing things. It would have been much easier to deal with this in Photoshop before it was a 3D object. I don't know, I think I do like that. All right. So there it is. I think I'm going to keep that because I like the rounded edges. It's not so sharp at the edges. So I've played with the model, and Mesh Mixer is free, by the way. I don't know if I've said that, but this is free from Autodesk to play with, and I may need to update my version. I haven't done it forever, so I'm going to guess that this is probably a very old version that you're looking at right here right now. So I already got one name solidified. Oh well, I'm going to call it. I'm just going to call it print because it's ready to print. Uh, Move this up a little bigger to, we'll say, it's almost 2 inches long. We'll make it maybe 4 inches. So we'll make it 85. All right. And then you can come back over here, get rid of the uniform scaling, because I don't want that to be an inch thick. I still want that to be about a half inch. So 1.5, which is not exactly a half inch, I know, but 1.25 ish is more like a half inch. Here, we'll do that. 1.25 ish, roughly. Okay. So now, so you see they got this little thing here. It's not a whole lot. Not much to it. All right. So if I can get it to lay down like that, I should need 0 supports. So let's try that with no support and no adhesion, because it would be building straight to the plate theoretically, if this is all true. So it says that it's got a solution. So I got no support, no adhesion, and a 4-minute print is what it's telling me. So, all right, I'm going to save this. You got the M3 Pro. right, so my signature has been printed, and I printed it a couple times. Once, once to kind of show you how thin and delicate it can actually be. But here's my signature, and that is like that is as thin as the filament coming off the spool, but it printed my name. So that's as thin as the filament coming off my spool. And for something like this, if you had something like this, you could use something like this. I put things like this on a client's uh, on a presentation folder or something like that. I'll put their logo, their information, or maybe I'll blend a logo or something like that, and it gives it that raised feeling on the presentation. So that kind of gives you an idea of what I might use something like this for. It's incredibly delicate, so I mean, and it's the PLA, so I mean, it'll snap in a hurry, but it's meant to adorn something and be decorative, and that's about all that it's supposed to do. And I mean, this isn't a whole lot more durable, but this is like if you were to see like an emblem or a logo on a machine, this kind of gives you that feeling there because it's a little bit deeper, a little bit thicker. And of course, I could have made these bigger because this is a lot bigger here. I made this other one. This was much bigger. I made these small so it wouldn't take very long to print. And you get the idea just by what I got going on here. So there's not much to it, but I'm holding on to my signature here. I signed this in a Sharpie a few hours ago, and now I can pick it up off the page. I can literally pick my signature up off the page, and uh, then you can do things with it. Like I said, I was with my initials. Uh, these are relatively flat too, but it's on this red back here, so that it glows behind. But that's you can use it to mark things that you want to mark of your own. I actually did it with my car, changed all the logos on my car. We did it for our stage with our names. I mean, this is the fun stuff that you can do with these different things. Make it big enough that you can install lights into it. So, and now there's more. It's very shadowy. The light's actually down here. It's very shadowy up here. But you see how thin and delicate that is. But I could glue that onto something, and it would give it that raised embossed feeling. And I could, and the same thing with this. It's like gluing it onto and creating a logo for something, or I don't know. What do you do with your autograph or your signature? You put it on stuff. I mean, that's what you do with it, right? What else you gonna? I mean, what else you gonna do with that? What else you gonna do with that? Or put clients' names and logos on stuff, because it doesn't take it doesn't take that long to print stuff like this out. But in a presentation, or if you're handing somebody something that's got a physical document or something, and it's got that feel and a look. Uh, it's a nice little powerful way to say that you spent time thinking about this right off the get go. Eye catching. So there it is. Process for turning a, uh, a signature or something you've written on a piece of paper into a 3D printed object.